Hey guys, BlackCross here, and welcome to another discussion video. Chances are you've already been familiar with the PS5, with its Ultimate finally revealed after so many months of waiting. And, we finally got a lot more details as to, games that are coming out for the system, potentially within the span of 2 years, per se. Not only that, but we also have more details regarding the PS5. One of these smaller details is the fact that, both the controller as well as the camera, and although it has not been 100% confirmed, it would be interesting if the body of the system was the same way. But the controller and the camera, the mold for it, actually has patterns of the PlayStation symbols, being that of the X, circle, square, and triangle symbols. And whenever I first found out about this one, I was like, that actually is pretty interesting, considering. Because, the controller, there's nothing much going on in terms of the controller per se. And, even if you were to look at it closely, the back of the controller just has grips, which allows for better handling. With the new controller and everything, the mold is different. And so having that texture gives it a little bit of detail, which I actually appreciate. I do actually like that. And so it'd be interesting if it turns out that the system body was the same way, that it actually has a pattern of circle, X, triangle, and squares on it. It'd be interesting if that was the case. But I want to dedicate this video, however, talking about a particular subject, being that of the PlayStation 5's digital edition version. Technically, Microsoft did this a couple of years back with the Xbox One version. They had the regular disc version followed by a digital version. And, it's hard to say right off the back if it panned out well. And I haven't heard the numbers as to, which one sold more, whether it was the digital or the physical port. So, Sony's obviously doing the same way with the digital and physical. I don't know how much of a price difference it is. I imagine it's somewhat of a different, but not major. Like I say, probably about... This is just rough guessing it, but based on programming, but followed by the fact that that much space is no longer required to have a disk drive, I imagine it would be somewhere within the realms of $50 maybe. Maybe $50 cheaper, I don't know. Depends on how they do the pricing. But... the ultimate question that we gotta ask ourselves is that, who would this mostly be for? Naturally, it would be for people who strictly wants to go full on digital. Now, there are plenty of benefits for having digital games on your system and stuff. For starters, it doesn't take up space in your actual physical room. It can happen, this is a benefit that a lot of people like. The biggest one is that depending on the time frame of buying the digital goods, sometimes you can catch it on sale as to oppose physicals, because digital, they always go on sale. In some point in time, you're going to find a whole bunch of digital games on good pricings and stuff. Whether it's Labor Day, Black Friday, Christmas, Thanksgiving, so on and so forth. Digital always seems to have stuff on sale for some reason. I've noticed that. But, obviously that's trying to push the sale for digital goods. But, another thing, and this is actually something that I think a lot of people need to hear, is that there could be so much more benefits that can be done with digital gaming, followed by what could be done to improve the realms of it all. And that's why I want to make this video, basically saying what would get me, someone who appreciates physical games, who wants to have it all the time, what would get me to finally buy into getting a digital version of the system, which will most likely never happen, but if you wanted to encourage digital sales, this would be the way to go. So let's first talk about how to improve digital sales. How can we improve upon it? Well, we should first start off by trying to improve the PlayStation Network store. Now, obviously a lot of people are confused whenever I say the PlayStation Network store, and, it's like, well, what can you do to improve the storefront, we're talking about digital games. Yes, but here's the thing. where do you normally buy your digital games from? You know, depending on the platform, depends on where you're going to get it from. True, you can redeem codes, but where do you got to go in order to redeem those codes? The PlayStation Network store, obviously. So, in my personal frame of preference, you need to improve the storefront before you can say you can improve digital sales. Now, obviously when it comes to digital sales, there's nothing else in terms of looks. Looks aren't really everything. Setup, however, though, is the main thing. And I think in my personal opinion, one of the major setups that would definitely sell it very well, if nothing else, it might improve it by a small percentage, by that of 1 or 2% maybe, is the fact that what if you were to inquire a wish list, per se? For those that don't know, whenever you go into the PlayStation Store, you know, you're buying games and stuff like that, you can add them into cart and stuff. But there's nothing else that you can go beyond that. You can't just go and say, oh, add to favorites, or like add to buy later, or something like that, you know, or compile a list of digital games that you want to download later on, but you don't have the money to purchase them. You don't have that, you know. It's like, if you're familiar with Amazon, Amazon has it to where you can save it for later, or put it on a wish list, or something of that nature. You can do that, you know, you add it to cart, and if you can't buy it, you can either save it for later, or put it on a wish list. And the reason why you would want to do that is because you can't save it on your cart. You know, it will sit in your cart for like 24 hours, depending on the website. It'll set it for 24 hours, and then after that, it's automatically removed. In my personal opinion, I think it would be more beneficial to customers and gamers per se if they were given the option to have this to where they can save a game. You know, they're browsing on like the weekly new releases and stuff. They'll look through it. They'll see what new has come up. They either might be inclined to want to purchase it, or they are thinking about getting it to begin with, but they obviously don't have the cash in the wallet at the moment. So rather than have it set into the cart for 24 hours only to then be removed later on, they can save that on a compiled list of games that they might be planning on purchase later on. You know, if they had that set up in some form of way, I think we could see an improvement in digital sales. You know, again, it wouldn't be a big jump, but it would be a significant amount, I think. Another good option, in my personal opinion, and this one, however, is going to be one that is more towards me, but there is a significant amount of you guys who would actually like it. I think they need to start back up on their PlayStation Classic game lineups. If you don't know, the PlayStation 3, when they upgraded the models to where they couldn't be backwards compatible for PS1 or PS2 disc, the only way you could play it on those models would be as if you downloaded the game from the PlayStation Store and basically downloaded the PlayStation games. At the time, the PlayStation 3 had it to where you can play them on the 3 and put them on the PSP and just transfer the data back and forth and stuff, which was at the time what I would call a beta before the Nintendo Switch was, you know, where it became the all-in-one system. Back then, you know, the only way you could do it would be that nature. And then, of course, the PS4 and PS Vita kind of had that, except you had to buy the game twice, which was stupid. But anyway, and see, the PlayStation 3 had it to where you can download or purchase downloads of PlayStation 1 games, such as like Final Fantasy VII, I know Final Fantasy IX was another one, Xeno Saga was another one, I forgot what all the other ones, but they had quite a list of PlayStation 1 games available to purchase and download. There was, however, one problem, and that was the fact that it was only on the PlayStation 3. Now, moving on to the PlayStation 4, it has some PlayStation 1 classic games on it. But for a while, though, ultimately it stopped. But for a while, though, they were starting up a PlayStation 2 collection pile-up in digital sales. They were trying to sell PlayStation 2 games onto the PlayStation 4 digitally to where you can purchase them and download them. And if I had to ratiate how well that worked, based on the list we got, I would say it was a pretty good idea, and I would be up for that, except it, much like the PlayStation 1, it also ultimately kind of stopped. So while there's like 50, I believe there's 50 or more PlayStation 2 games available on the PS4. And then of course the PlayStation 3 has some PlayStation 1 games. The problem is that it just stops there, you know. So in other words, say for example you wanted to get a particular PlayStation 2 game, like for example, best case scenario would be Blood Would Tell. You know, it's a very expensive game physically wise, and it's only available for the PlayStation 2. So why not have that available digital for PlayStation 4, or, you know, when you start the PS5 up, put it on there to where people can download it. Same way it could be said for the PlayStation 1 games and stuff, you know? And while it may not make sense to the mass number of players, it does make sense to the retro players, you know. They have favorite games of older games that they want on the system, so why not have that option, you know? And the problem is that there's this big argument about how there's a copyright thing, you know, there's a trademark thing. And while on the one hand, I can understand that, but on the other hand, you know, it came out for the system. So what's preventing a company that was published on that system to republish it again in that same format to a new system? Like, can we get a lawyer on this and actually say, what's the difference between having to reissue the license versus putting the old game onto a new system digitally? What's the difference? You know, what's the classifications of making this happen, you know? And if we can't do that, then backwards compatibility would be the way I want it to be. But that would also require to have the physical disk drive system for the PS5. But if you wanted to encourage digital gaming, in my eyes, try to push back or bring back the PlayStation Classic games. You know, try to bring back the PS1s and the PS2s into the library. You know, try to build it up. Try to get more on there, so that way people will jump into getting a digital system. You know, it just, to me, that would be a very nice thing to have. You know, it's like, again, because some of these PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 titles are becoming harder and harder to attain because of pricing and stuff, it would only make sense to have them available digitally. But the biggest thing, and I'm going to say this right now, but no matter who you ask, it's going to have a counter argument when I say this. When I say that there's going to be so many back and forth in terms of the situation, the issue, the way that Sony handles this, the way that the tech industry handles it. There are multiple arguments that can be shouted based on this subject alone, and I'm going to say this right now, but I'm saying it because it is 100% true. Have it to where you can transfer your previous purchase of PlayStation 4 games that you have purchased and downloaded for PS4. Have it to where you can transfer those to the next generation. I don't understand why this is a problem, okay? Because it was like this for the PlayStation 3 merging onto the PS4. The only way you could purchase digital games that was for the PlayStation 3 was if it came out during the time that the PlayStation 4 was released. Because the PlayStation 1 games that was available for PS3 could not be transferred to the PS4. In fact, none of them was virtually available to download, much less purchase again, on the PS4. So it was a sucky feeling of knowing that these games that we want to have, we could not transfer them to the next generation. And I still remember clearly remembering how weird it was to have this full-on list of games that is virtually available on the PS3 store. Yet, you go onto the PS4, it is a completely different setup, it's a completely different format, and there's barely any games on there. You see where the problem is. If the PS5 suffers the same fate, digital sales will not peak. They will not peak. Especially if you keep this stupid codec issue being a thing. Now, the PlayStation 3 codec-wise was more complex because they were trying to stop people from hacking the system in order to copy disk or copy games and everything of that nature. Unfortunately, that never stopped hackers from doing it anyway. They were still able to hack into the PlayStation 3. The PlayStation 4, however, though, its codecs is said to be a lot easier and a lot more manageable. So I would hope that they would keep that same codec to where on the PS5, instead of having it to where you had to repurchase games or, say for example, the library isn't visually there, you can just transfer games from your PS4 that you have purchased and download onto the system. You can have them migrated onto the PS5. Now, obviously, because of the digital age, it would obviously be set onto a cloud or something like that, depending on the save data. Or, again, you've already purchased it on the PS4 store, you can just go into the PS Store network, look at library of games that you have on your PS4 system, and have them re-download to the PS5. In my personal opinion, you can do that. That's not a hard issue. Now, for a lot of people might say in terms of programming, here's the deal. It's one thing, when you do like the Nintendo Wii U going to the Nintendo Switch. That's understandable. There is actually a programming difference between systems based on if they use the gamepad functionality, depending on the programming that is needed to use the gamepad functionality, because some games require you to use it. Not all, but some do. And now they're being re-released for the Nintendo Switch and stuff later on. In fact, if you look at the list now, Delmar has made videos talking about it. In fact, he's also making one right now, if I'm not mistaken. But you can look at the library of the Nintendo Wii U, and you can look at it and say, that's for the Switch, that's for the Switch, that's for the Switch, that still needs to be put on the Switch, that's for the Switch, that's for the Switch. You get what I'm saying? It's already been migrated. So, in a sense, because of the Wii U gamepad, I can understand that functionality problem. The PS5, however, though, when you think about the controller setup, it's not that much different to the PS4. In fact, we'll get a comparison right here. Here's the PS4 controller right now. Now, when you look at the PS4, tell me, beyond all of the different details, is there anything dramatically different about it? If the answer is no, then there should be no major issue. If the answer is yes, tell me what that difference is. And don't tell me, oh, the DualSense. Because that's a functionality, that's vibration controls. That can easily be adjusted into the programming of basic controls. Okay? DualSense is a form of vibration. So the DualShock and DualSense function the same way. Different purpose and different uses, but same functionality. Right? So, because of that, it should be the same codec to some degree. If not, it should be. It should be to where you could transfer games from the PS4 to the PS5. And this will help sell digital games. Not only that, but it could also sell the digital version of the PS5. It can help because when you think about it, when you first buy the system, chances are you're not going to have a huge library of games to play on. It's more likely going to sit on your shelf for about a good couple of months until a good lineup of games starts to roll out, Be it that of indie games or AAA titles, so on and so forth. But why not just go ahead and have it to where all the games that's virtually available for the PS4, have it to where you could have them be transferred to the PS5. And the same way can be said of the PS Store network. Have it to where it is linked in the same way to the PS5. So in other words, you go into the PS5 PlayStation Store network, all the games that you could purchase from the PS4 are already there for the PS5. And then of course there's also the argument of repurchasing games. Some of us don't mind it, but if it's not virtually available for the next console generation, what is the purpose? You get what I'm saying? It's like, there are so many different counter arguments, and none of it adds up. It is definitely a stupid, greedy thing to have, It's like, these games that people want it also for the next generation. They want to be able to carry it with them. They want to be able to take it with them onto the next generation. And if you do that, have it to where we can transfer PS4 games digitally and have them transfer to the PS5, do that, you will see an increase. I can guarantee you, there'll be multiple players actually telling you, yeah, I want that. It's like Salta Sanctuary, yes, I want to be able to play that on the PS5. Blasphemous, that just recently came out for the PS4 some time ago. Have it to where it can be transferred to the PS5. Final Fantasy VII, PS1, for PS4 rather, have it to be transferred to the PS5. You know, all of these games that you can download right now from the PlayStation Store network, have it to where you can transfer them to the PS5. And I can guarantee you that would be very appreciative. And that would actually that would make digital gaming more valuable, actually. Now, I'm not saying we can sell systems with list of digital games and stuff, because technically you can't do that. You can't do that. That's actually illegal in some cases. But to have it to where you can transfer an entire digital library to the next console generation without any fear of not being able to play these games onto the next system, that's actually a really great trade-off. It truly is. When you think about it, it is a nice feature to have. And especially, because people talk about it, in case there's another console generation, it's not going to be that hard. You know, you can have that library of games that you have built up for so many years, it can be transferred to the next console generation. And you wouldn't have to worry about losing the ability to download them, because they're there in the store. You know, don't obsolete it, don't exile people, have it to where they can join in the next generation. This would be so easy, and it is so simple, yet for some reason companies make it sound complex. If we can get Kingdom Hearts 3DS onto PS4 and Xbox One, we shouldn't have a problem. If we can get PSP games remastered, beautifully even, and put them onto PlayStation 4s, what's the difference? Like, are you seeing the thing? The gaming industry has done so much to push boundaries that we didn't think needed to be pushed. We didn't think it needed to be pushed at all. There were some boundaries we never thought needed to have that. Yet here we are today, we're seeing them happen all the time. And if you want to say the PlayStation 5 is revolutionary, then break that boundary that is so nerve-wracking to gamers. Have it to where we can purchase any game from the PS4 store to the PS5. Now, people are going to be asking, well, what about the PlayStation 3? That's where I would actually have to say a counter argument on that one, because most of the PlayStation 3 games have been ported to the PlayStation 4. Again, going back to the Wii U, you can look at the PlayStation 3 lineup of games. While not as many, there is a handful of PlayStation 3 games available for the PlayStation 4. Some of it is digital only. Resonance of Faith, that is a digital only PS4 remaster game. Catherine Full Body, yes, you can buy it physically, but it's also available digitally as well. You see where I'm getting at? I'm trying to encourage digital sales in the right manner. And if you can't do that in the right manner, then how are you expected to push for digital sales if you can't encourage players? You want to encourage players to feel comfortable about purchasing digital games. You don't want them to feel like it's worthless to purchase digital goods. No, you want to make it as though as if it's a valuable experience. Again, from going into the PlayStation Store network to purchasing games or saving them for later times, and to have it to where people can transfer them onto the next generation. You want it to be a comfortable experience for gamers. You want them to feel comfortable and not be afraid of taking the risk. No, you want them to feel comfortable, feel confident knowing that the digital industry is going good. That is I'm trying to think of the word here, a very, very detailed word, and I can't think of it, but you get what I'm saying. You want it to be a valuable experience in terms of digital sales. So if you want to be able to push for digital sale marketing for the digital console, do these things. And I promise you there will be a significant increase in more customer availability. There's just customers who don't have that huge faith in digital sales because it's not being done right. You're more or less exiling people from doing what they love to do, which is to play games. Play their favorite games on any system. But if you can do some of these things, imagine that. Imagine a time where you could have an entire list of PlayStation 1s, PlayStation 2s, 3s, and 4s, potentially even 5, have them all virtually available to download and play, and they can carry it to the next generation. Like, how mind-blowing would that be? It would be that easy. And that would get rid of the argument for backwards compatibility. It would take that away, technically. If you can somehow break these boundaries, you will see a huge increase. And it would be beneficial. Not just to people who are trying to sell the system, not just to the company, but to us as gamers as a whole. Guys, let me know in the comments below, what do you think about what I'm saying? Does any of this make sense to you? Do you understand where I'm getting at? And if any of you even doubt that any of this is possible, please give us your reason for why you think none of these things is ever going to happen. Obviously, one of them would be ignorance, because yeah, Sony is ignorant, but they have to realize that they have to keep up the threshold of being the top seller. If they do these things, they will actually stay at the top. Because technically, Nintendo doesn't do this still. People want this, but Nintendo doesn't do it. Microsoft, you can argue and say that technically they have backwards compatibility, so technically speaking, they don't need to worry about having digital games. But if they did, it would be a rival for Sony. If nothing else, it'd be a worse rival, because there are actually some Xbox games that people love and are playing them right now on the Xbox One, and more than likely will play them on the Xbox X series. So Sony, do these things, and I promise you, you will stay on top of things. I promise you on that. But anyway, I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys.